Now, one more example of this kind of an arrangement where you have requirement of one end, you have requirement of another end, but they do not like make changes to their requirement. Instead, they use kind of like a layer in between. This layer we call as an adapter. Layer this called as an adapter. I'll show you one more very interesting use case. I believe at least from 2018 or 19 to 2022, Apple released a lot of laptops. MacBook 2020. If I look at the 2020 variant of the laptop, let me actually show you how it actually looked like. Okay. Okay. So how traditional laptops look like? If I go to Flipkart, Dell laptops, how traditional Windows laptop or like let's say traditional non-Apple laptops looks like is that every time, let's say you want to buy a laptop, most of the laptops do one thing. Let me actually show you if they have, you can see most of the laptops, what they do is they support a lot of ports. Okay. For example, you will be having a dedicated 3.5 jack. Then you'll be having a RJ45 port for your LANs. Then you'll be having an HDMI port. You'll be having dedicated USB-C port. One USB-C port will be Thunderbolt compatible. One USB-C port will be normal. Okay. Sorry, not USB-C. This is USB 2.0 ports. And then you have a dedicated USB-C port. Okay. So you can see, and apart from this also, you have a headset jack here, USB to 3.2 again, and a Kensington lock slot or whatever it is. Okay. Moral of the story is most of the time, if you go and buy a non-Apple laptop, these laptops support a lot of ports. Now think about as an engineer, both on the hardware and the software aspect, who is actually manufacturing laptops of these companies like Acer, Dell, Lenovo, and think about with respect to a engineer in Windows who actually prepare a Windows operating system. Now on the hardware level, they have to dedicatedly handle all of these different kind of ports. Think about in the era of 2012. In 2012, 2011, USB-C was not there. So if you will see laptops of that world of 2011, 2010, 2012, USB-C port was nowhere present. But now, let's say the moment USB-C port was launched, they saw that there is a lot of, I would say, demand for USB-C port. Then in the new manufacturing, they had to introduce USB-C port. Think about with respect to the engineer of Windows. Now, as an engineer of Windows operating system, you also have to prepare drivers and connectors that can help you to support all of these ports, because most of the laptops of the companies like Acer, Dell and everything, they support Windows, right? They give the genuine Windows out of the box in their laptop. They charge for it although. But as an engineer in Windows, you have to actually do the programming that a new external hard disk or a pen drive can be connected via the USB-C port also, USB 3.2 Thunderbolt port also, non-Thunderbolt port also, so on and so forth. In fact, previously, if you had to connect to your, I would say, monitors, then majorly HDMI port was used. Nowadays, you can even use USB-C to connect monitors. Okay. So USB-C to connect monitor. Okay. Monitors can also be now connected with USB-C. Now think about with respect to a Windows engineer that you previously had your firmware present that was supporting connection to an external display via HDMI. So of course, HDMI has a different electrical signal. HDMI will be having some other type of coding, right? And now you have to support Type C also. Think about it, that if you are an engineer in Windows, and you know that these ports keeps on changing very regularly, it would be a very hefty task for you to every time configure a new port for you for the machine, right? Whereas if you think with respect to Apple has been always way ahead of the game. Now a lot of companies actually criticized Apple for this move, but this move was, in my opinion, extremely smart. Why? What Apple did was Apple used to give only two type of ports. One USB-C port and one 3.5 mm jack. In fact, in my own laptop using which I'm taking this lecture, I have USB-C ports and a 3.5 mm jack. Nothing more, nothing less. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, you might be thinking, what is the benefit of this? The benefit of this is, as an engineer of Mac OS, the operating system that runs in Apple MacBooks, you do not have to care about HDMI ports. You do not have to care about, let's say, USB 3.2 ports. You do not have to care about the LAN port, so on and so forth, right? All you have to do is you have to prepare your Mac OS such that it supports USB-C. But now you might be thinking, okay, if the user doesn't have a USB-C, let's say they have a pen drive that is USB 3.2, what they will do? In that case, they will buy a MacBook connector that you also call as a MacBook adapter. These kind of connectors you have to separately buy. This is a cheaper one, 333. But when new MacBooks were launched, these adapters were way expensive, approximately 5,000 or 4,000 bucks you have to actually spend to get these connectors in place. Okay. But my point being, what these connector used to do was, any external interface, let's say you have HDMI, USB-C, you have USB 3.2, anything, you connect it with this adapter, and this adapter has an outlet of USB-C. This USB-C used to go in the MacBook, and that's it. MacBook just cares about the connection with USB-C, right? They do not have to care about these connections because of this adapter. Although if you will check the latest MacBook, in the latest MacBook they have brought back, I guess, the HDMI port. I'm not sure. So if you go, I guess because of public backlash. So if you see the new MacBook, okay, we need a side image, any side image, okay. So you can see USB-C still stays there. Now they also brought the HDMI back. They also brought the HDMI back. This is their own charger port. This is for their charging, so this is separate. And I guess they have brought back the SD card slot. They have brought back the SD card slot. Probably maybe the customer backlash was there, or whatever their eng felt. But I believe this was a very smart move to actually remove all the ports, because they were able to save a lot of cost on the software engineer's perspective of I would say Mac OS, and also save a lot of cost on the hardware of Mac OS as well. So if you see with respect to Apple, that was not a bad move. Okay, this is the latest MacBook Pro that has been launched this year. I guess last year, which was having these additional ports of HDMI. But you can still see they still do not support the normal USB port, yeah, the pen drive port that you generally have, or they still do not support the LAN port. Okay, they still do not have that. For that, you still need a connector. My point being, same story, that they are not changing their product based on somebody else's requirement. Okay. In fact, nowadays, so iPhone has also brought USB-C, but iPhones and most of the mobile phones do not come with a 3.5 mm jack. If you have an old headphone that you want to connect to your phone, then you have to use your charging port, and in between you have to use an adapter. Again, an adapter or a connector. Adapter for 3.5 mm jack in phone. Okay. This kind of an adapter you have to actually use. Again, you plug in your 3.5 mm jack here, and you plug in this to your charging port, and that's how your mobile phone can get connected to the headphone. Again, moral of the story is same, that you are not going to change your requirement of the product based on somebody else's requirement. This actually gives us the base to understand one of the most interesting design patterns called as the adapter design pattern. Okay, the adapter design pattern. Now, what's special? What is exactly so special about the adapter design pattern? The adapter design pattern actually helps you to make sure that two incompatible interfaces. Two incompatible interfaces. Two incompatible interfaces can work together. When I say interface, this interface can be a Java interface or a class or anything. Something, two entities in your programming which are not compatible with each other are able to work with each other. So you can say that adapter pattern acts like a bridge, acts like a bridge between two classes or interfaces or objects, right? That cannot directly work together, due to different structures, okay. So you can see in programming also there might be a case that you might have to interact with a situation where what you already support is not supported on the other side. In that case, what you have to do is you have to use something called as an adapter pattern. This will help you to actually make the interaction between two different layers. Now those layers can be classes, interface, plain objects, anything, slightly more easy, right? This is the agenda that we have to care about.